Okay, thank you everyone for joining us for this week's webinar. Maria and I'm from Shliela. I will be facilitating this evening's event together with Ellen, and Laura is in the background doing tech. So yeah, welcome to this event on food justice and cooking for freedom. This event is part of our series, Decolonising the Planet, Building the World We Want to See by Shliela. Shliela is an anti-authoritarian, anti-capitalist direct action group which formed last year. And we believe in the power of self-organized communities to create spaces for education for ourselves and our communities, to build a radical climate movement on the island of Ireland, and to act to end the capitalist control of people and the earth. So this evening, we're very excited to be joined by two amazing speakers, or three even amazing speakers, and one musician. So we're joined by Anandi Premlall, an international agro-ecological educator, writer, grower, and pharmacist, and Mavis Ramazani and her friend from Cooking for Freedom. I will introduce the speakers in a little while in a bit more detail. We also have music from M from a group called System Failure, and yeah, we will have some music from them and also a few questions. One thing to note is that this session had to be pre-recorded for a few different reasons, so we're not able to take live questions from the audience, but hopefully our speakers will be able to give you some social media platform, or they can direct you somewhere where you can follow them and maybe ask questions that way later on, or just stay in touch to learn more about their work. Now, a little bit more about this evening's event. This evening's event is really important because food injustice is a harsh reality in Ireland and all across the world today, whether that's in the agricultural sector among the workers on fields who are exposed to pesticides and poison, or conditions in meat factories, or all the way to the other end where food is consumed and where there's unequal access to quality food. So it is really clear that the inequality and injustice permeates the current food system from start to finish. Unequal access to healthy food and also unequal access to land and organic subsistence or community agriculture are also a big part of this food injustice. And one aspect of this is, for example, the lack of access to common space to produce adequate food locally on a small scale. This is compromised by capitalist control over land, by private ownership of common spaces, by lack of access to healthy land, by cemented surfaces, and yeah, in many places also toxic soils and toxic air, which prevent people who have been pushed to the margins by sexist and racist and classist state systems. It makes it really difficult for people to grow and enjoy healthy, organic, and nutritious food. And so, like so many other things, organic food has become, to a large extent, a privilege that mainly the predominantly white middle classes and the rich can enjoy. To bring this into an Irish context and to like put a specific example on it, in Ireland, there is the situation faced by those going through the asylum system, which is called direct provision. So in most centers around the country, those who seek asylum do not have access to cooking facilities, and they must eat the food provided by the center. The problem is that centers are run for profit, and as one can imagine, food quality is really low and food is inadequate. It's not culturally appropriate. It's served at very strict times and gives little flexibility for people's needs. And overall, this is another aspect of the system that removes people's choices and freedom. So in response to all of this, one of our speakers, Mavis Ramazani, she was going through the asylum system and she set up a group called Cooking for Freedom. So Cooking for Freedom is a group of parents in direct provision who raise funds to buy and cook nutritious and culturally significant foods for themselves and their families. They started this project in 2017 and have used community kitchens in Dublin for collective cooking. They fundraise on a continuous basis to be able to buy ingredients to feed their families in the centers they live in. And this direct support and solidarity has been a lifeline for many families. It has helped to build community and has had a positive impact on mental health. And it has also helped, especially during the COVID crisis, where the reality of this injustice became even more clear, and people had a really hard time to self-isolate because rooms are shared and cooking facilities or eating facilities are shared. So Mavis and her group have done so much in trying to support as many people as possible in this way. And so she has a lot to say about the realities of life in direct provision and the issue of food injustice. If you want to donate to Cooking for Freedom, you can go onto their website, cookingforfreedom.ie, and you will be redirected to a donation page where you can support their work. And I think we'll plug this at the end again, so just to remind everyone that they can donate. About our second speaker, Anandi Premlall. She has been involved in community-based permaculture projects in New York City, but also all around the world, with the aim to grow affordable, appropriate food as an act of resistance, a step towards food sovereignty, and an act of healing the planet and human communities. Her global mindset and vision rest at the intersections of social justice, sustainability, wellness, and permaculture. And she's an international agro-ecological educator, writer, grower, and pharmacist. Her mycelial roots thrive in the Caribbean and in ancestral India, and also in the USA. She has a passion for sharing her work and wisdom, and she has forged connections to like-minded communities and producers, and helped to foster lasting improvements in the fields of sustainability and agroecology, including biogas education, biodigester installation, and troubleshooting. So a lot of hands-on work and a lot of also a lot of wisdom through like workshops at various venues, including urban and rural communities across the world. She has a donation page where you could support her work, which is a PayPal. So it's www.paypal.me/aapremlall. We will also say that again at the end, and you can also find both donation pages on our social media. So now we're looking forward to hearing from both of those amazing women, or really even more, because another Mavis's friend joined us as well, and there will be some questions answered from our musician. So we're really happy to hear about all these experiences of combating food injustice and using food as a means to resist and to bring about positive change. So I think the speakers themselves will do a much better job of talking about their work. So I will start with questions that, yeah, like bring a little bit more info about the speaker's work. And Ellen is facilitating together with me, so we will ask the questions alternating, and Ellen will then, in the end, sum up the event and plug next week's event. Yeah, so the first question, I'll just dive right in, is for Anandi. Anandi, your passion and a lot of your work, like we heard in the introduction, lie at the intersection of social justice, sustainability, wellness, and permaculture. Could you talk a little bit more about that, a little bit about your work, and maybe you could elaborate on what is social permaculture and what is its importance in creating spaces where communities can thrive? You have about 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Maria, Laura, and Ellen, and glad to be here with you, Mavis and Celesta. So for those who don't know about permaculture or maybe aware of it, permaculture is earth care, people care, and future care. And so earth care is everything that's involved in caring for our natural world. People care, which social permaculture, where social permaculture comes into play, is about caring for our community, our human community, and future care is about what we're doing with all our resources and our excess, especially now. This has come up a lot in terms of the pandemic happening worldwide, and where the part about, you know, what are we doing for the future? What do we do with the spaces and the food and everything that we have that's going to waste or excess or extra, and how can we better share this in an equitable way and make sure that more resources are available for those who do not have the access or have been, historically denied the rights to, to access to these types of resources. And so when Earth Care, People Care, and Future Care are all aligned, then you have the perfect balance for an incredible community where everyone can thrive. So it means that everybody lives in, in an equitable way, sharing whatever resources that we have, caring for those who have disabilities of any sort, elders, children, and looking, really in a way how intergenerationally we can bring back these connections, because throughout time we've gotten more and more separate, especially in urban areas where you're trapped in these little, prison cells of apartments with your own little kitchen, your own little space, and the whole community aspect of cooking together and being together and sharing all of all that we have, has been limited. But there are a lot of amazing organizations and people who are bringing this back together again. And so what I've been doing with courses that I've been teaching and people that I've been meeting around the world, whether it's in Brazil, Barbados, even most recently in Mississippi, where I was helping farmer friends start up their farm, and looking at, what resources are available, what are the trees, what are the medicinal plants, what's already available here in the community, like learning how to identify the trees, the crops that are already growing there, and making sure that, if you're going to forage, that it's going to be in a way, in a safe, in a place that is relatively clean and not too contaminated by the lead that comes off of cars and traffic. So a lot of what I do is also looking at, how, our daily practices, just habits in terms of composting our food waste, taking, make sure we take care of our health and wellness. How do we create spaces in our community that allow for that? And when you don't have space for people to gather in your communities in terms of placemaking or creative placemaking, you can't have democracy. You don't then have the freedom to be able to communicate and gather with everyone. And which is an interesting thing that's been happening through this pandemic, where we've been pushed into, being isolated and denying ourselves the, the necessary human connection, which can be very harmful, because more people, can die from loneliness and depression. And so gathering and being in ways that and connecting and staying in touch with the, with loved ones, I think is really important, and what I've been doing. So so what I also, have been working on too is how we design spaces, especially in urban areas, and being creative about how to use space, because you usually have a small amount of space and we have to think vertically, think very creatively, what resources we have, what trash can be turned into amazing planters for us to grow just about anything, and who has maybe a rooftop or, a little bit of space, or even crates and containers that you can pop up and move around if need be. And right now has been the perfect time to do a lot of guerrilla gardening and seed bombing, and just, having creative fun in terms of increasing our food supply and growing our own food. So I've been trying to find the, the light in, in a lot of what has been happening lately.
I might jump in there, Anandi. That's great. That all sounds so interesting. I can't wait to hear more about it, and definitely agree, like finding the light in all of this is so necessary. I'm Ellen, by the way, from Shliela as well. So I'm going to jump in with a question for Mavis and Celesta now. So Mavis, you set up a project in 2017 called Cooking for Freedom with other people who were going through the asylum system. Could you tell us a bit about that time in Dark Provision? Like, you'd recently arrived then and you decided to set up the project. So what was it that made you set up the group And obviously, Celeste, you were also going through the same experience. You're obviously in a different center on the other side of the country, but you also, if you want to jump in and say anything as well about your experiences around that, that would be great.
Thank you so much, Ellen, and for affording us this opportunity. As briefly, a background has been given by Maria. My name is Mavis. I'm the founder of Cooking for Freedom. I came in Ireland to seek international protection through the asylum process. And I found myself at a direct provision, which is an accommodation facilities that are currently used as a system to accommodate those who come to seek international protection in Ireland. And I got a shock of my life when I realized that I had to go and eat at a canteen, same food every day, Monday to Sunday at certain times. I remember dinner was at 5:30, and dinner time, sometimes there's not even bread for you to take to your room. So that wasn't only my frustration, but was the frustration of other parents, especially us as parents. We used to preparing food for our children, and after some time, you know, my daughter who's here with me stopped eating. You know, she was just like eating bread only, and she didn't like the food. Of course, it was the same food every day. It wasn't prepared the way that her mom would prepare it. And when I talked to other women as well, and I found out they were frustrated with the food, same rice, same chicken every day. And we ask to be afforded an opportunity to cook for ourselves, just provide us the basic and the kitchen facilities, and we're given a no. So after being given a no that these facilities couldn't, we have no choice but to eat at a canteen. Now, eating at a canteen, if it's temporarily, maybe it might be seen as okay, but through the asylum process, we are there, if not for months, for years. So meaning that you cannot eat food provided for you for years. So for me, I then decided to start Cooking for Freedom. I said, you know what, we need just cooking facilities. That's what we need in the beginning. And I started talking to a few of my friends and looked for empty kitchens, basically, that we could make use of. How were we going to buy the ingredients? I had no idea, but I just needed that space, firstly. So we did find some community kitchen in few places. I remember the first one was in Dublin 1 at a social space called Jigsaw. So Jigsaw Berry, the owner, you know, with the contact of a few friends that I have, gave us that space. And from there, I decided to say, you know what, we are only, at that time, the weekly allowance was €19 a week. So we're not going to be able, basically, to buy the ingredients. So I came up with the idea to say, if we could be able to fundraise, and at the same time, we could not also accept food. If friends were to say, Mavis, could we get food? We couldn't, because we had no space. You're only limited. You only have a room to yourself. So where will you keep it? You do not have a kitchen facilities. So briefly, that's when Cooking for Freedom came, you know, out of frustration of having to eat in canteen for years. And luckily, I had the connections and the network. So I reached out and we're given the kitchen facilities. So that was a breakthrough. That was when Cooking for Freedom was born. And it started with 12 families, I remember, in 2017. The feeling, it's more mental than physical, of being able to go out and buy those groceries, that you have that choice, that autonomy, you have it back. And that choice of going into the shop and choosing what you know yourself. These are the type of food I want to prepare today. So I'll just stop here and give also Celeste, a dear friend of mine, also to have a talk. Celeste.
Oh, well, I was very proud of Mavis when she started this project, because I remember when I came into the system, my son was 2 years old. And the food that they cook at the facilities are not meant for kids, not even for adults can't eat it. So he couldn't eat anything at all. Like, they will mainly give the same food, like just boiled rice and the meat. I remember it was like this pile of oil, and the meat will be at the bottom there. Like, it was totally unhealthy. When I moved into Mayo, the system was the same. And there's no way you can feed a child such food. And every day for lunch, it will be burgers and chips. For dinner, it will be the greasy, oily food. So there's no way you're becoming healthy there. You keep eating the same food that you're not happy with. And they were not catering for people with diabetic. They didn't cater for anybody. You just had to appreciate that there's food in front of you. So that time was really rough. So in Mayo, they did change the system a little bit where there's shops, but so many other direct provision, you still struggle. And still in those shops, you work with a point system where, like, me and my son together, we get 70 points every week. And 70 points are not equivalent to 70 euros, no. 70 points, I don't even know how they calculate them, but like, are not even enough to try to take you through or do anything. In that 70 point, you just have to try to figure out how to manage yourself and manage your kids. So it's very stressful, especially for parents who are like in the Muslim community or who cannot eat for some reason the type of food, the managements, they don't care at all. So yeah, it's a very good program that the ladies have started, really.
Yeah, and also just to add lastly was we needed also to build a community, to have our small village where we could meet, and we all know we came from different backgrounds, talking different languages. So, but food is one language we all understand and unite us as human beings. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of this. It's, yeah, community is absolutely important, and food should be at the center of our lives. I mean, we are what we eat, and we need to be around people. So thank you for sharing all of this. And I guess the next question kind of leads on to what you have said. And it's going to be a question to all of you, because you all share that you work with people who unfortunately have been pushed to the margins of society, who have little privilege. And so the question is, how, in your experience, are communities on the margins impacted by the current food systems, so by the modern food systems that we have in place? How does that impact your communities in different ways? You can either answer the question, or you can also talk to each other, whatever emerges. Yeah, Anandi, do you want to start?
Okay, so yeah, going from seed to belly. Seed saving is, to be direct with that, is one of the essential ways in which we can control our food system. Knowing that there's a lot of seeds out, a lot of foods that are starting to be sold in markets that have no seeds. And when they have no seeds, you can't save them and you can't grow them anymore. And also what happened during this pandemic is a lot of the seed companies actually ran out of seed because so many people were trying to grow food. And a lot of people who hadn't, been gardening or farming before suddenly had this interest because they realized that what if our, the main ports of import and export were shut down? How would we get food? How would we survive? And the amounts of people that are lining up right now at food pantries is tremendous. Right now in New York City, they've been, really awesome programs operating out of schools and other public spaces to provide food boxes, meal boxes. You can come in and pick up breakfast and lunch at no cost. And then there's also meal packets with fresh produce. So you'll get fruits, veggies, sometimes meats, dairy, just about everything, even cookies. So a lot of the food, you know, since schools and everything have been closed down, they've been able to reallocate the resources that were already put towards a lot of these public institutions back into the community. So I think that the response in this way has been, you know, absolutely great, for especially for those who, you know, who have been marginalized. And the mutual aid that has popped up has been so incredibly inspiring. The amount of community folks who are putting together meal kits and delivering them to those who, you know, who cannot leave their apartments, and making sure that, you know, food is actually there for everyone. And it's, you know, it's been really beautiful to see and witness and also participate in. So I think that, you know, even though this has been, you know, a really tragic episode and, you know, in time, that it really highlights and shows the beauty of, you know, how community is actually coming together. So in terms of creating new food systems, which, you know, we all need to do and think about right now, and the best way to do that is, you know, through seed saving, continuously sharing seeds, and growing together, sharing recipes, cooking together, because it's not, you know, what my mentor in Shiro, Dr. Vandana Shiva, said, it's not just about knowing how to grow the food, you also need to know how to cook the food and feed yourself. That's another skill that's absolutely essential and important. And I've been learning more and more how so many, you know, people don't know how to do this. And what I've also been exploring and demonstrating with others is zero waste cooking. So a lot of the food that you would, you know, put into your compost bin, the food scraps can actually be made into broth for soup. And then one of my favorite recipes that I've been sharing and making in various places is watermelon rind pickle. You know, it's a part that's most usually thrown away, but actually makes a super delicious treat. And so, you know, really looking at, you know, so much of what's happening with food waste, because it's not that there's not enough food for everyone. It's a distribution problem. It's the food is just not getting to everyone that's needed. And mostly around the world, it's, you know, it's women of color who are growing food on less than 1 acre that are feeding most of the populations around the world, not you know, not the traditional like big farmer on his big farmland growing Monsanto or, you know, monocrops. And so it's really beautiful to see that people are actually coming together. A lot of people have been reaching out to me to learn about gardening, and to help them set up their gardens. So I've been sharing seeds. I've been giving whatever advice and support that I can. So when I had the opportunity to go visit some veteran farmers in Mississippi recently, and help them, you know, set up and give them some advice and show what's possible on their land, I saw how much the work that I'm doing is needed, especially for a niche community, especially for marginalized people, people of color, particularly women of color, and how some of these institutions that are supposed to be helping and supporting in the agricultural world really take advantage of us. And so I'm seeing now, you know, my eyes are a little more open in terms of more of the work where I can be focused and where I can provide a lot more support. So I'm feeling pretty, you know, pretty hopeful and positive about how our communities are coming together, and what we're doing in terms of food and making sure that our communities are taken care of.
To add as well, I would say that when you come in Ireland as a refugee coming and staying in the direct provision, you are negatively impacted in terms of the food, because you do not have a space indoors to grow even just simply herbs. And you also, there's no land made available for you even to just establish a bed, you know, to grow simple things like your mint, your spinach. That discourages you as an individual when it comes to food, eating the food that is good for your body and your mental health, you then start resorting to what we call junk food. And when you eat junk food, most of the time will be food that you can just put in the microwave. That has a negative impact on your mental health. Therefore, if space is not made available, if those resources are not there, not only space inside, but a space outside, you can grow your own food, then you become discouraged. Then that means now we are raising children that will not grow fully, develop, because remember, both adults and children, especially for children, part of their growth depend on what they put in. Your brain, for it to function, you need proper food, and that food is food that you are able to grow some of the food at home, in your own home, or can go out and buy. But if you are not also able to, you do not have the finances to buy that food that's good for your brain and your children's development. So that is my own experience on the negative impact it has truly been on individuals within the community specifically that I'm part of. Therefore, in future, we need to see a change in that, where there's a community and a community garden where we could grow our own food. Even having that skill alone, it's very important. And to have a space, if you can't grow it outside, you can, I'm sure, grow some food inside if you have the space that's provided. Thanks. I should say something. No. Okay.
Yeah, that's all so interesting. Also, yeah, we know in Ireland, of course, this inequality is so structured, particularly obviously for people going through the asylum system, and then people also in emergency accommodation, forced into homelessness, who are often put in hotel rooms, who, if they're lucky, quote unquote, might have access to a microwave. So again, just certain people in society we know are forced to eat food that isn't actually able to sustain them, and it's completely racialized and class-based and is not the way it has to be. It's just because the inequality is structured so strongly into the system. But we'll hear more about all that in a while. We might have a song now from M, if that's okay, and we're going to ask you some questions a bit later. But for now, if we could have a song, if your internet and everything is working.
Yeah, I've got 2 laptops going on here.
I think you'll have to mute one, or there'll be an echo.
So mute that one.
You probably want to use earphones.
How does it work like that? Can you hear me?
No, it's okay.
Okay, great. Amazing. So yeah, I've got a bit of a tech support kind of system going on here.
We're clearly all really high tech. This is all
yeah.
there.
Yeah, I can play a song. Just have to make some space. Before I play, I just want to say that was great to, I caught kind of the last 10 minutes. I didn't get the beginning, but it's great to hear everyone talking about the different projects. And it's really nice, Mavis, to kind of put a bit of a face to the voice, to the name, after like kind of being in contact on the peripheries. But it's nice to hear you talk about cooking for freedom, and I guess that's something I'll talk about later on. The project that's hoping to be involved with you. So it's okay. I'll give a little bit of an introduction to this song. I kind of wrote this thinking about how for us to go forward and like ask the questions that we need to ask ourselves, and to kind of dissolve these lies, and to be able to question our embedded racism or superiorities or sexism or whatever it is that we're all holding. We need to look back to how things came to be. And for a lot of white people, for a lot of European descendants, we have such a distorted history, and our own history of our own imperialistic colonial exploits has meant that we white people don't know their own history a lot of the time. And once we know our own history, we can start to ask the questions of how to do better and how to kind of confront capitalism and imperialism and racism, all these structural oppressions. So this is about that. We are the words that our ancestors give us, the breath that they breathe into life, into us, the dreams that we dream in the days and the nights of us. And if those ancestors speak in a tongue of drought of breath, charred by the desert sun too long, left out of dreams splintered by what they've gone so long without. I go through my days plus conspectors of what came before, a riverbed deep, I flooded with law of the healers and witches, when knowledge was the barter for bread. People knew something of what they lived for. There's a rope twisted salty, and I burn my hands, defiantly wrapped by the herbs, by the strands of the moon that float from the loom of the dark night, calling me to take up corners of land. But in the feel of it all, I know something else, something bitter and acrid and pungent in the shadow self. I may be born of the earth, but the trees, they were felled in my name, my mother's name, grandmother's name. We come from a rising and falling of swords, a blood smeared upon chests and arrows in the horse of the states, their curse and their worth in the order, self-willed no more. We are the words that our ancestors give us, the breath that they breathe into life, into us, the dreams that they dream, and the days and the nights of us. And if those ancestors speak in a tongue of drought, a breath charred by the desert sun too long, left out a dream splintered by what they've gone so long without. My tongue comes from a civilization that worships the pen and the fence and the men, it's all men and their minds were ken from it all. When the women were burned with their words, I could be from people who saw a disorder in poor and strapped burden and death to their backs while they hoarded the grain, defiled the soul, left it lame from the rain and the work and the begging for more. But it might be that the people that fought in the fields and forests, the line of the young led to me and the torrents that rage from mouth onto mouth through song and cantation is what I breathe. But I breathe in the air that was stolen from others, from black and brown bodies, children wrenched from mothers, the ships and the trade and the cane and the fight to the death, smothered. People fell in the name of name, and I see pillars of bone and blood for our foundations. All these nations, the state, reactive independence, but independence is fraught with the gaping wound left from the soul trading, empty womb. We are the words that our ancestors give us, the breath that they breathe into life, into us, the dreams that they dream, and the days and the nights of us. And if those ancestors speak in a tongue of drought, a breath charred by the desert sun too long, left out a dream splintered by what they've gone so long without. What's left? I turn to my cunt, to my wound, to the blood that flows ties into ties, to the roar and the swell, capsizing the ships that sought dominance. It trues and it wills what we mean by common sense. And what is true if not sense? Our fingers, our tongues and our ears, fumbling round for roots to follow, linger. We cannot lie to our bodies, they know. Little shells of our wild selves. So we live, and we dig, and we pick at a scab of a guilt that just needs time to heal. How to be real to another, when the things that have built us are the thefts and the kills and the wills of a wasteland. We come from sickness and soil, the rich and the spoils. We are children of Luddites and pagans and diggers, or we are children of war, of gentry and piety. However we came here, but by the same flame that splits veins, casts chains, rearranges our minds into confessions and naming names. Kill the cop in your head. What if the cop that is there is a 1,000-year-old figurehead? The pain we inflict is a sign of the pain that brought blood and burnt crops in the homestead. It is there that we come home to ourselves, come home to the things that were stolen from us long ago. We are the words that our ancestors give us, the breath that they breathe into life, and to us, the dreams that they dream in the days and the nights of ours. And if those ancestors speak in a tongue of drought, a breath charred by the desert sun too long, left out a dream splintered by what they've gone so long without. We are the words that our ancestors give us, the breath that they breathe into life, and to us, the dreams that they dream in the days and the nights of us. And if those ancestors speak in a tongue of drought, a breath charred by the desert sun too long, left out a dream splintered by what they've gone so long without.
Wow, that was beautiful.
Did the sound come through okay on there?
Yeah, that sounded great. Hopefully, hopefully it'll come through on the YouTube. On the YouTube. Okay.
On the YouTube.
I'm always just so impressed when people can remember loads of lyrics as well. Very impressive. Thank you. And we'll hear more from you later as well. So thanks so much. I'm going to jump back in with another question for Mavis now, and Celeste if she's still there. So Mavis, cooking for freedom has obviously had a really positive effect on people's lives who are involved in the group, whether it's parents now being able to cook the appropriate nutritious food for their children, or people who are elderly and sick and not able to cook for themselves, who you have been able to support, especially, you know, during lockdown when people really needed that extra support. But could you tell us a bit more about the impacts you've seen of cooking for freedom, and a bit about how you all have been helping each other and supporting each other through the group? And I don't know if Celeste is there, but if she joins and wants to add something, that's perfect as well.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Hopefully she'll join us shortly. We are with Giovanni, so she's just attending to her son. Cooking for Freedom has had a positive impact on the men and the women and the children who are part of it. I feel that I have established a small community. As we know, individuals who come through the asylum process have different levels of trauma. You know, you left home, you left everything you know. And when you come here and you have that community, it is amazing. We were not only able to share the food, sit on the table, but we became a support structure for one another. I am a mom, I have my 9-year-old with me. I have a community that helped me to look after my daughter. It takes a village to raise a child. And when I came to Ireland, I found that was like I didn't have a village, but I established that a village. And also the level of trust. When you come through the system, there's so many myths about it. We grew within Cooking for Freedom, that trust, it became so strong, and the bond. Yeah, and also we connected, we integrated in a way, not fully, but we're able to connect with other communities, because when we're sitting, we're eating, we are sharing the challenges. And from there, be able to bring the communities from outside to come in and share the food and hear our stories. So we became our own voice and gave each other the confidence to say, you know what, you have a story to tell. Don't let someone else tell your story. You tell your own story. You know your own story, and your story deserves to be heard. It must be heard. That's how we address injustices. That's how we address challenges. That's part of the healing as well when you go through that traumatic. During the lockdown, with the help of the Refugee Migrant Solidarity Island, specifically Ellen, assisted us Cooking for Freedom to raise funds, because we had the period where individuals had to cocoon. That included in our communities of people who had health, problem. They couldn't come out to go and get their food from the canteen. So Cooking for Freedom members, we prepared food, dropped food at their doors. So that support also continued and support individuals within our communities who were cocooning. And mothers, there was a time when there was a fear, like if you go out with your child, you're not allowed to go with children. So we were able to support each other. But that community was established from 2017. We can't imagine if we did not We do not have to even imagine if we do not have that community. And I'm proud of myself to still be the pillar to say to people, this is Ireland, it's home for us. We can establish, come on board, come cook, let us eat. What are the challenges? How can we give a hand? Cooking for Freedom did not want to give a handout, but a hand up to people, the freedom, the autonomy, the process, to be part of the process of healing, to see individual skills, to bring them out. It doesn't mean you come to this country, we have no skills, we have skills, we have expertise. I've tasted all different kinds of food, and I got an opportunity to travel into people's hearts, into the world, with Cooking for Freedom. So the establishment of a village, a community that trusts each other, that support each other, that is there for each other, it's part and parcel of any community. It doesn't matter. It did not matter your status. It did not matter your background. We all need that. That is a solid foundation that everyone needs, to have a community. So Cooking for Freedom has done wonders, has been wonderful, has been a strong support structure. Thank you.
Wow, it's amazing to hear. Yeah, that's so much community and so much positive came out of this. And yeah, it's really, really, really good to hear. We'll go back to Anandi, and the next question is, you also worked a lot with communities. You worked in nature education with children of color. You worked in community gardens. You used your knowledge and expertise, like you said before, to help people, especially Black women, also to set up farms or improve their farms. Could you speak a little bit maybe about the positives you came across, but also maybe the challenges that these communities had to face, or that you saw and that you experienced, like issues in access to land or access to funding, or difficulties during this COVID crisis? Yeah, so the difficulties and maybe also some positives.
Yeah, thanks. So I've worked in environmental education, and last fall into last winter, the students that I worked with were mainly children of color and children who are also in transitional housing. So the lessons that I was working on, I always brought some kind of food or snacks to the class and found a way to embed food into the program to really create that connection for them. Because I feel like once children and young people are able to connect with food and connect with plants and nature on that level, it impacts not just them, but their parents and their future. Because I even heard my students, I was walking behind them after a class, and they're like, oh, the garden lady told us about this, and we learned about this today. So they got just really super excited about it. And I know that they're like, what are we learning about today? And they wouldn't even let me leave the class or just jump on me when I come into the classroom. So it just makes me feel, really good that they are, taking into something that they learn, even teaching them about herbs and just like smelling and tasting it. And they're like, oh, we could taste this, we could eat this, we could eat that. Suddenly they want to eat everything that I bring into the classroom. So, so I think that's a beautiful thing. And then the other ways in terms of helping and working with community, really looking at, how we can fight for land. Like in New York City right now, one of the, getting access to land, especially as people of color, is, somewhat difficult. There are some gardens that have been established, but what happened during COVID was that all our botanical gardens and our community gardens were shut down. So these public spaces and spaces in which we can gather and grow together were closed off. And I look at these as spaces of healing, because my gardens have definitely helped me, stay alive and given me hope, looking at those little seeds, blossom and grow up, and, and how flowers make you smile just by being. So I think that it was, a huge mistake to deny, access to these spaces to many who were then otherwise trapped in their apartments and having, nowhere else to go. I feel New York City is a space that, is used to be 24 hours. You used to have, you know, access to so many beautiful things. It's just not the same anymore. Some things are opening up, but it's also, you know, it's also just a very different experience here. And being outside of that, traveling, you know, to other places and seeing how communities are actually getting together, you know, seeing that there's such a need to utilize land in a good way. And there are also really great opportunities for land, and what's happening with land right now is there are a lot of young folks who have come into financial resources who are looking to reallocate and gift those resources to Black, Indigenous, people of color to be able to create farms, grow food, create community. I mean, I've just been so amazed at how much mutual aid has been going on, and how a lot of people are coming together and really, you know, looking at that permaculture aspect, that social permaculture aspect of what do we do with our surplus? How can we then reallocate resources where they're most needed? And so in terms of getting access to land, access to funding, people of color have been traditionally denied access to a lot of funding and have been tricked out of giving up their land. And so there's a lot of work. There are amazing lawyers, organizations right now that have been doing tremendous work in terms of food justice, land access, and not just land access, but land ownership is really important, because you could have access to land and then be creating something amazing and then have that actually taken away, which totally sucks. But then if you actually have ownership, or you create ownership, or create a cooperative or partnership, then you can create something, you can create that kind of a legacy where you can grow and continue. And I think that's one of the things that has been missing for a while, especially in my generation, because we've been displaced initially from India, and then Guyana in the Caribbean, and then in New York in the US. So we really don't have anywhere right now that's an anchor, any kind of like home or land that that we really can connect with right now. And you know, a part of my story is that, you know, I was brought to this country. You know, my parents brought us here when I was 5, and I lived here undocumented without papers, and for like over 30 years. So you know, still able to do an amazing amount of work and contribute to society and the community, but still it was definitely a challenge. And now having, you know, housemates who are, you know, seeking asylum from ICE here, it's really, you know, I was really able to be, you know, empathic and compassionate to, you know, to their needs, and seeing like, wow, this is their, you know, first time here, and like, wow, you know, there's so many wonderful organizations that are actually supporting those who are coming in. So it's beautiful, you know, it's really beautiful to see that. And you know, things that weren't available many years before are now actually coming together, because more and more people are looking to support, similar to those that are sharing their homes, sharing, you know, sharing whatever that they have right now. So as much as there's still a struggle to get funding, I think there's a lot of funding that has been opened up right now. But it's still, sometimes you do need a proxy or a white proxy to actually get the resources that you need. So the more that we can work together, the better, and more that we can achieve.
Thanks, Anandi, for sharing that. It's all so interesting. And yeah, just so clear how much borders mess up people's lives and cause so much pain and destruction, and operate to uphold the capitalist system, basically. So it's pretty terrible. I just wanted to ask you on that stuff you were just saying there about like land access and, you know, reparations and all this stuff that's going on. Have you come across, do you know Leah Penniman from Soulfire Farm?
Yes, I've participated in the beginning in the farmer programs there, and I'm also an alumni. So alumni, and then also came back as a facilitator for the programs there. Yeah.
Yeah, her book is just incredible. yeah, I loved it. It's brilliant. And also, I don't know if you met them when you were there, but there's a group they went last year, I think, a group from the UK called Land in Our Names, who are a Black led group of young people like wanting to access land for organic and agro-ecological farming, and are talking about land justice and reparations in the UK. And it's just amazing to see that kind of stuff happening, and yeah, so much to learn from all those kinds of groups. But we can share, I'll share that stuff at when I post about this talk and stuff, because there's so many amazing people doing all this work. So thank you.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet them because last year I was traveling.
They're incredible.
So, and yeah.
We're hoping to do, hopefully we'll be doing something with them as well, with Lion at some point. But yeah, thanks. Cool. Mavis, I might jump in with another question for you and Celesta. Just about, obviously, yeah, we know the direct provision system is totally unjust in how it operates and removes people's autonomy and freedom in so many ways. And obviously we're looking more at food in this instance. But I wanted to ask you, could you speak a bit about the challenges you face trying to organize from within the direct provision system? Like starting this project, what were the kind of challenges, and did you get much support, or was it difficult with management and things like that? And Celesta, I don't know if she's there, but she also organizes her own community in her center, and I'm sure could speak to the challenges of that as well. But she might be with Giovanni. So.
Yes, Ellen, Celesta would have loved to continue to contribute, but Giovanni, I think he's tired, so he just called her. In future, we can invite her in our future webinars. In direct provision or at these accommodation centers, the biggest challenge I had was management. They are here to facilitate a stay of refugees and international protection applicants while we are here to seek asylum or waiting to be processed. But that position, they have changes into dictating on what and how we should behave. And they get a pleasure, that's my own opinion, from saying no to you, even though they know a facility, they can provide it. Like for instance, where Cooking for Freedom was born, the Direct Provision Center, there was no need for us to go out if the management themselves, met us halfway as human beings and being kind and offered us a facility. We had 2 or 3 social rooms with table tennis, rooms that could have converted into communal kitchen. We're not asking for individual kitchens, just communal kitchens. And they said no. So they rather have this huge room with a table tennis and a pool table and a big TV. So we waste our brains and our lives every day, because you are there, you are sitting, you're watching TV. The next thing you're playing pool. The next thing you are playing. Whereas if there were cooking facilities, we could be cooking, preparing our own food, and that means better use of that space as well, and showing respect to the very basic human needs. I don't know of any home that will have a space and make it a social room unnecessarily when there's a basic need to have it established into a kitchen. So they were like, no, we're not going to. So we prefer those rooms being social rooms than community kitchen. So that was the biggest challenge. And another challenge is the department that is responsible for the reception of refugees and asylum seekers, which is they call it RIA, which is the Reception and Integration Office, the accommodation department within the Department of Justice. I have not seen them come in physically, even when we wrote to them to say, can we have kitchen facilities? Can kitchen facilities, they agreed with management, even though they are paying for us to be there. It's not like we are there for free. We are not. Where this accommodation center, each and every person, adult and child, is being paid to be there. They see these places, they monitor, they come and they inspect. And they've not questioned the fact that you have 2 or 3 social rooms with pool tables and table tennis, instead of it being a kitchen, and you're expecting adults and children to eat at the canteen. So both of them, you know, they are united in depriving us that opportunity, and also the invasion of privacy. Like for us, we found the rice cooker, and we smuggle because it was not allowed. So I would say smuggling it, bringing it into the room, and you prepare your own food in the rice cooker. There's so much you can do besides rice in a rice cooker. And if ever they ever found it in your room when they come to do the inspections, because there's just inspections that are conducted at certain times, they'll take it from you. So the fact that those rules existed in a space and accommodation that you fully know these individuals are not there for days or months, are there for years. You know, it's heartbreaking, it's sad, it makes you angry at the same time. The worst part is these rules are still applied today. They are still accommodation center or direct provision center where individuals have these social rooms with pool tables, with table tennis, with huge TV instead of a communal kitchen. There was a working group, and the working group recommended that asylum seekers and refugees, while in direct provision center, one of the fundamental things they should have is cooking facilities for them to cook. If that center has no space, it's only rooms, it's not a self-catering where you have a kitchen, then there has to be communal. And there were some sort of changes in certain places, but it wasn't a standard. The fact that you do not have a standard that applies to these communities, it shows even a community like our community, how divided we can be. Because if you look at all these direct provision centers, some have cooking facilities, others have kitchens, but others they don't have. Those who do not have, are they not human beings? Don't they have to eat? You know, it's the same families, it's the same adults, it's the same children who have the same needs. So the challenge basically has been that, for me, that's what made me to go and look outside for facilities outside the accommodation centers. Thank you.
Thanks, Mavis. Yeah, it's just so horrible, the invasion of privacy and the control that's exerted over people's lives every day. It's, yeah, you're all amazing for what the work you managed to do despite all that. I have one more question, I think, yeah, before Maria's next one. For both of you, Anandi and Mavis, again, like, talk about it how you want, or like if both of you or just one of you wants to answer, that's fine. So your work is contributing to a world that is based on collaboration and caring for each other and the earth. Could you share with us how your work has empowered your communities, and have you seen like ripple effects of change that has come from this work within your community? So yeah, if you have any examples where you have seen changes in people or changes in behaviors and things like that from the work you've been doing together.
Mm-hmm.
And Andy, if you want to.
Yeah. So one of the effects that I've seen, usually, you know, the parent or adult would invite me over to help them with their garden or their space in their farm. And one of the sometimes unexpected or beautiful things that happen is that the children get enchanted, you know, and start learning and are interested in the plants and the butterflies and the bees, learning to not be scared, scared of plants, learning to not be so scared of the insects and bugs, and learning that they are all part of our ecosystem. So I think, you know, when the little ones have this knowledge, they're so much more empowered, and it just, you know, learning to even like cook together. They just, you know, their parents just never thought they'd have an interest in it, but it's just one of like the gifts I have with working with children, and so seeing them, you know, have an interest and start, you know, getting excited to work in the garden, to get dirty. and not be afraid of the soil, so much, because here, especially in New York City, you eat, there's lead and, contamination and things like that. So you do have to get your soil tested. But then, it's also okay to let children play in dirt, get dirty and things. And so I do encourage that and the silliness. So I think, really adding that, that fun, the excitement. It's like, how do you make food justice? How do you make, growing and farming sexy, because that's what people are going to remember. When you make it fun, it sticks. And so that's one of the really wonderful things that have been happening. And I've also seen other programs, started by those that I've worked with in the community and around the world. So I've helped to start a seed bank in one of the quilombos in Brazil, and that's where the former enslaved people, Afro-Brazilians, are created their own village, and they live so incredibly simple and beautiful, having fat, healthy babies and just really amazing ways in which they share. And I spent a week living with them and growing, and I was supposed to go there to do this permaculture course, and I said, I don't have to teach you guys anything because you're living the life, the ways already. And they were just astonished to hear about other things that are happening that seemed more backwards in New York, in the United States, regarding this is connected also to social permaculture in terms of like women's bodies, health, pregnancy, healthy babies, families, and what it costs to actually give birth, and how little support there is for Black women and women of color in that way. So, and that is connected, to the earth, to the communities, to growing, and to making sure that we are all supporting each other. So, yeah, seeing all the different ways, all the little mycelial roots popping up around the world, and projects being created, others just being inspired to, to start growing. I suddenly see a lot of friends, showing off their plants on Instagram and Facebook, and they never really planted before. So little by little, like all these little seeds are planted, and so there's a lot of questions that come in. People ask me about things, about growing, about food, about just about everything, and they're constantly inspired. So I feel that what I'm doing, has been empowering, and it's just beautiful to see the change and to receive the messages. There was an article that was written up in Vice. I didn't even know it. And it showed one of the pictures when I was planting trees with Dr. Vandana Shiva and Janak Didi in India. And I think it was written in Dutch. And so and someone reached out to me on social media around that. So, and we connected, and we're constantly in communication, and they're asking about different supports and ways they can transform their lives. So just even, something, little like that. Somebody will see a post or an article about me and the work that I'm doing, and they'll find me online, which is quite easy. And yeah, I'm pretty approachable and, and open and supportive in that way. So it's just been really helpful for me too, knowing that, that what I'm doing does have an impact.
Oh, that's so
I'm
nice.
grateful.
Mavis, I was just thinking there about today, I saw you're growing some stuff with your daughter now as well, which is really nice. But yeah, do you want to jump in on anything there about the changes you've seen from the work you do?
Yeah, I've seen myself too, some of the changes. The children showed interest in food as well. I remember last year, Sundus, you will have met Sundus at the summer camp, Ellen. She became involved at school in one of the activities was gardening. And when she was asked what would she like to grow at home, she took a seed, a tomato seed. And last year she got an award. She took care of it so much that it grew so big. It was beyond your normal tomato. It was like huge. And then she was awarded by her school. And that she got motivated from seeing me and her mom go out to talk about food, go cook together. And also Asha as well, during the lockdown, she just wanted plants to look after, and we have sunflower, Asha, my daughter, and a tomato, watching her every morning, you know, checking, Mommy, can I water? What do I need to do? So that interest shows in future, she will not only be depending on going out and buying, she will grow food. And if given that opportunity, and also we were involved in a project from the interest from the children, they show interest at different times. Even when we went to the kitchen, they wanted to buy cookbooks now, they wanted to cook. We also got involved with a project with Nessa, who's an entomologist. We had a small bed that she started with the kids, and the kids learn about different plants that you can grow that attracts bees, and the importance of the soil, you know, looking after them, and also growing these for different reasons besides from cooking. You could also make medicines from it, so it's also good for our health in general. So yeah, those were lovely changes, amazing, inspiring changes that I've seen, the collaboration between us and the world out there, interest around food and growing our own food and learning from one another. Thank you.
Lovely. I think Maria has a question for everyone now as well, and
Yes.
Em as well.
Yes. Yeah, my heart it's warming from all these positive things that food can do, and that growing food, and especially children, just getting so empowered and learning so much from growing food, and it changes their lives. So yeah, it's so lovely to hear. So following on from that, and I think both speakers have already kind of touched upon that, so the next question is again for both of you, and it's I think, yeah, you have touched on it, because you've already talked about how you change, how things have changed through your work. So for us in Shliela, creating a radical climate movement and a better collective future for all is about challenging all systems of oppression, including capitalism, racism, patriarchy, and so on. So creating a fair food system, access to healthy, nutritious food, land, nature, and community is also of central importance to creating this better future for us all and for the planet. So for you, what would a just food future look like, and what can individuals, or what can we do also as an activist group, what can we do to help to create the system?
Okay, so for me, a just food system would look like food growing everywhere on our streets, in our neighborhoods, utilizing as much space as we can, whether it's grafting, you know, fruit trees onto other compatible trees. I highly encourage guerrilla gardening and seed bombing in areas that you can't really reach. I've done that in some areas in Queens, and the flowers come up every spring, and there are trees, you know, in particular neighborhoods that weren't there before, providing shade. And then there are a couple of orchards also in New York City that was part of creating, one on Randall's Island with a native apple tree called the Newtown Pippin. And then another one, which is a memorial orchard at Earth Matter Compost Learning Center on Governor's Island in New York City for a farm school New York City friend who passed away. And so these beautiful trees are constantly giving and growing food for people. And it's such a beautiful, you know, such a wonderful way to preserve the memory of an incredible human being that we lost way too young. And so all these little ways, the more, you know, trees that we can plant. That's one of the suggestions I also made to the friends, the veteran farmers that I've been working with in Mississippi, that, you know, creating a food forest. There were grants that came up, and they're amazing folks who work with Lift Economy that sent me the grant application, because I'm connected to, you know, to those who are, you know, who are creating and growing projects both in the Caribbean and South America and around the world. So I was helping to get funding for the creation of food forests in, various parts of India, in particular, one part in South India in Kovalpati, where I visited a farmer who was practicing silvopasture, and that's growing plants and trees in harmony with animals, back into the old ways where they can graze, and then they'll poop, and you'll have natural fertilizer, and so you don't have to use chemicals or even, a mower to take care of your grass. So I think going back, to, a lot of the older ways, the simpler ways, which I think that a lot of us have been embracing during this pandemic, learning how to bake, learning how to grow food, learning how to share with each other a lot more. And so, yeah, I think that, that's one way, sharing a lot more seeds, which has been happening a lot, saving seeds, and, you do need to grow them out. So, so yeah, in whatever ways that I, can get access to seeds and share them with Indigenous folks, people of color, whoever needs them, I can. And the more and more we do this within our community, setting up our own seed banks and systems that will be beneficial, learning the necessary skills of, cooking and also processing food, canning, in the jars so that you have your harvest ready for when that crop isn't in season, and learning the cook a lot more seasonally. I made a cookbook for the young people I was doing cooking classes with, and made it a lot of fun. I mean, some say that the recipes were, a little more complex than what young people, would do, but they handled it well, and they loved it. And I think that, a lot of times we think that young people or children are not as capable of comprehending or understanding things, but in my experience, when I speak to them as, as human beings, they really appreciate that, and they really do understand and ask a lot of questions, and they pick things up incredibly, so much so that, when I was teaching them about harvesting plantain, which is, a leafy crop that grows wild and is great for any kind of skin ailment. And, you would take it, chew it up, and then put it on whatever wound you have. And so the little girls in Mississippi did that for their brothers when he had, a skin ailment. And so it was really funny and really beautiful to see them just coming together in that little thing. So I think just, in ways that we can more share, work together, whether it's sharing our living spaces, sharing our open spaces and land. I think that's absolutely essential, because there's so much land that's wasted right now. And then growing as many polyculture, which is like diverse, many different types of plants in different layers of a food forest there. So we have an incredible diversity of food that's available. And then also, making sure you do things like composting and collecting rainwater, and that all cuts down on it makes it more sustainable, and it cuts down on waste. And the more we can do that and walk more gently on this earth, the better life we'll all have together. And the more resources will be available for all, because anytime we pollute and throw things away, they end up in, floating away to the more marginalized communities. Yeah, so being, just more aware and a little more conscious about our consumption, I think, helps in creating a fair food system, in creating a fair food system, in addressing, patriarchal systems that have been, stopping us, and then also creating the continuous flow of plants and food for everyone.
Wow, it's an amazing session. I'm learning a lot myself. I think on my side, what is important, it is the sharing of information, creating awareness of, as the host country, to those who came into your shores, as early, as you receive individuals, to make available, the information, the education about the food, the agriculture. How are you doing things? How can we access? I know in Ireland there's quite a few community gardens, but if I don't have that information, to encourage it very early, to advocate for it a lot, because you can find within the refugees and international protection applicants community, there are farmers, there are individuals that you can also equally learn from, but they need you to come on board and say, okay, this is how things are done as a host country. This is what we are encouraging, we are advocating. So a lot of advocating, sharing information, sharing expertise, having that access, you know, to have the access to the land. But Anandi made a point earlier on, access doesn't mean ownership. You know, which one do you own? How available are you making it to others who come into your shores? So that's very important. Let us share, let us collaborate earlier on, because this is very important to every individual, to every community, and we all know it unites us. It makes us, you know, come together. Yeah.
Does do you want to come in with anything there on what a just food future would look like for you before we before I ask you some questions about your project?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think what both Anandi and Mavis saying, not access to land, like I think throughout history, you know, if a power, you know, whether it's the state or an invading power wants to overcome someone, the first thing they do is take the land and find ways to kind of either remove people from the land or kind of subjugate people on that land itself. And I think having access to places that people can rebuild their lives and reconnect with the things that are important to them, food growing, community sharing, knowledge that's passed down over generations. You know, when people don't have the place to pass that knowledge on within, then that knowledge, you know, where does it go? So I think, yeah, having a just food, a world in which food sovereignty and access to food is just, I think a big part of that, yeah, is land. I think there's a lot of people, it seems to be becoming more and more popular these days, that people are thinking about self-sufficiency and sustainable growing practices and scaling down with what resources they're using. But I think a lot of people don't make the connections between access to food and racism, or access to food and classism. And I think if people aren't making those connections and extending their support and their resources, like I think Anandi was saying earlier, some people, young people who were kind of contributing financially to Black and brown folks in the States to be able to kind of get these projects off the ground. Like, I think if people don't make those connections between these injustices, then I don't think we can ever live in a more just world when it comes to food, because there will always be these divisions. So I think, yeah, meeting at the intersections of class and gender and race and, you know, disability justice as well. I think like food, it just goes everywhere. It can go into all the pockets of people's lives. So yeah, I think the more that we can see how much this is all connected with food, the more likely we can succeed in growing things bigger than ourselves and beyond our lifetimes. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, and also, like I can't remember, I mentioned it in we did a webinar like 2 weeks ago about farming and the food system and food sovereignty and stuff, and I was looking at statistics in the UK where I think it's like 98% of farmers are white British, and in the US I think it's something similar, like 98% of land is owned by white people, and obviously in Ireland we know it's definitely the same or even higher.
Yeah.
But obviously it's a different historical context here compared to in those countries. But but yeah, just how consolidated land is based on racism, and also increasingly is consolidated into fewer and fewer hands. And yeah, we can't have a food system that serves people unless land is shared communally and is taken out of that kind of ownership pattern. Would you, oh yeah, so I was going to ask you about your project that you and I guess a few other people have started recently, that you're getting off the ground in Dublin around distributing fresh vegetables to folks who are going through the asylum system, and doing that, connecting up with Cooking for Freedom. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about that? And then if you, I think you've another song for us, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I guess it was maybe a month or just over a month ago, I was talking to one of my friends, and we lived together, and I'm saying, look, we're growing food in our back garden, but you know, it's all very well us growing it here, but like, how can we make the connections between the growing of the food and the people that don't have access to the food? And my friend said, well, why don't you get in touch with Cooking for Freedom, get in touch with people and see like where is the meeting point between those two places. And so over the last few weeks, we've been you're obviously in touch with yourself, and like trying to figure out what kind of connections, what kind of supply can be made from food growers in Dublin to people in direct provision, or people who have gone through the asylum seeking process. And so yeah, we had our first delivery today, which is exciting. And yeah, the intention is kind of to like, yeah, build stronger connections between community gardens, community farms, but also just individual people living in Dublin who are just growing some herbs in their back garden, and to bring that consciousness of food autonomy to people who might be already growing food for their own reasons, but might not be making the connections between the lack of food autonomy for people in direct provision. So right now we're just getting started, so we're just supplying veg and herbs and fruit to a couple of families living around Dublin who've been through the direct provision system. But ideally, hopefully, depending on what goes on with COVID, we'd like to be able to extend that to people in Cooking for Freedom, or even find ways to supply people who are at different centres in the like Dublin area, different direct provision centres. But even then, that feels like there's a limitation to that. And really, like, what would be amazing is to actually find land and work along the sides people, you know, saying that people in direct provision have so many different skills, different kind of different knowledge that of being farmers, or being kind of people who grow food to cook with, or medicinally herbalists. Like, it would just be great to find land that people could have access to come into Dublin, have the, you know, the travel help to come into Dublin and have a place to grow. Like I think Mavis was saying, there isn't really even space to grow a few herbs on windowsills. So I think, yeah, right now this project is very new and it's just getting started up, but it would, you know, we have to dream. We have to dream big and hope that it's not just going to be just vegetables coming from one place to another, but to make that link between, and have a place where people can grow and begin to rebuild a sense of autonomy for themselves. And so that's, yeah, we're just starting off now and seeing what people would like from that. You know, people, we're just seeing what people want to have access to, and trying to get hold of it at the moment. So if there's anyone watching that is growing a few carrots or has a few spare spuds or an apple tree in their garden, give us a shout, and try and make a regular donation.
Or wants to gift like 100 acres or something.
Oh, that, yeah, even better. Just has 100 acres lying around. Like, yeah. yeah, the most important thing is, yeah, the connection of people kind of spreading the word and thinking outside of just themselves and what they're growing for themselves, but thinking, well, how can I extend my knowledge or my skills to provide support for someone else, or to work alongside someone else in their struggle for autonomy. So that's where we're at.
Thanks. That's really exciting, and yeah, I'm sure something good will come from it. So hopefully your internet's okay to give us one more song, and then I will. Oh, is Em gone?
This is. I'm here. I don't know.
I think there's an echo.
Is it better now?
There's still an echo. Do you still have the two computers?
How is it now?
There's still an echo.
Try that again.
Oh, yeah. You've come back now on that other screen. If you mute the other computer.
I've got one muted and one unmuted.
I just
try that.
Oh yeah.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I sought the tech support from someone else, but I actually don't really know what I'm doing. So,
okay, hopefully it'll work.
Another song?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's give it a go. Okay. Copper light on the brick wall, winter's grip loosened from the air, and we do as they've always done, plant out the seeds to last the year. Cups like colours, front garden wonders, land sprawling wide, or windows to climbers, taking back what we can of our common ground. Fields yielding row after row of the same, bees dying with only the grain. Hedgerow sanctuary smited by hands of a god roused by money and wastelands. Farmers dead in their droves, brought to the end by the patterns and famines. Born of the same bitter crop, the hoarding the wealth from the common ground. We're not enemies, you and I. What's mine is yours, as the sun is the skies. It's from the earth that we know how to rise. We are not enemies, you and I. What's mine is yours, as the sun is the skies. It's from the earth that we know how to rise. For our common ground.
Oh, I think you muted yourself.
Did it just mute itself? Okay. Yes, we depend on the trees and the soil, the salt and the temperature of the ocean. It's in all of our interest to grow and protect the common ground. But we are pushed further and further away from what could center and humble our days. Autonomous connection, new life to old ways on the common ground. We are not enemies, you and I. What's mine is yours, as the sun is the skies. It's from the earth that we know how to rise. We are not enemies, you and I. What's mine is yours, as the sun is the skies. It's from the earth that we know how to rise. For our common ground. forced into flats with no green grass for miles. Development all around, forced into cities to live since industry abandoned the town. Forced from the fields and into the buildings, meaningless work claims the days. Families forced into monoculture, but plentiful to eat when the crops all fail. We are not enemies, you and I. What's mine is yours, as the sun is the skies. It's from the earth that we know how to rise. We are not enemies, you and I. What's mine is yours, as the sun is the skies. It's from the earth we know how to rise. Rise, rise for our common ground.
Oh, that was beautiful. Again, thanks so much. I'm glad we didn't miss those last lyrics because they have a really good message. So thank you.
Did you hear the background at the end of that?
I might conclude now, and then I'll just ask everyone, you know, if you want to kind of close with any words once I've done that. And yeah, just before I say that, I want to kind of qualify. I said a few minutes ago, like, you know, 98% of land is owned by white farmers in lots of places, but obviously the people who actually do the work in the system are mainly people of color and migrants, often undocumented, who actually do the labor and then don't have any access to ownership of land. So yeah. So to conclude, I think we can see from all that was covered here tonight that food access is a really political issue. It's not something that's trivial or should be secondary to any of our other political struggles. It's essential, I think, to political struggle. So too many people are denied access to the basic necessities of life today, or are forced by this racist and classist capitalist system that we live under to struggle every day to have enough of the right sustenance to live well. But of course, we know it's possible to have all of our needs met and for it to be done in a way that can benefit the growers and the producers, to benefit all of us who eat every day, and to work with the natural world. We know this system is not the way, the only way it has to be. Also, we know when our needs are met that we have more space and energy to fight for a better future together. And I think this was summed up really well by Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a Black women and civil rights activist in the United States, who grew up sharecropping with her family in Mississippi and picking cotton from the age of 6. I think she summed this up really well when she said, when you've got 400 quarts of greens and gumbo soup canned for the winter, nobody can push you around or tell you what to say or do. So we really need to create a future where we all have access to fresh food grown in a way that fosters and supports life. And I think the projects that were talked about here tonight can show us some ways that people are already working on this. And I know I am, and I'm sure everyone else in Shriela is just really grateful that all of you shared about your projects with us here tonight. And we definitely learned a lot from them and have a lot more to learn from you all. So before, oh yeah, and I just want to mention the next week as well, we have our final webinar, which we don't have the final speaker list for just yet. So I'm not going to say all the speakers, but we will be releasing that tomorrow. But the last webinar will be about the future we're fighting for. So it's going to be another really interesting one, and I hope people will be around to join us for that. But just before we finish, I want to ask the speakers, if there's anything final that you want to mention, if there's like ways people can support your projects. We'll obviously share your links when we're putting out the event. Or if you have suggestions for different things people can do maybe in their own areas as well. So, Anandi, do you want to go first with that?
Sure. So one of the first things or suggestions that I would have is to start growing something. You know, get a seed packet or a few seed packets and start growing something, whether it's flowers or food. There are edible flowers too, which are great, or herbs. But I think starting that. That's something relatively simple and easy that just about anyone can do. You could use a can, any kind of object, and get, you know, dirt, create a little compost, and start growing something. I think that has, you know, magic and, you know, a bit of horticultural therapy, a way of healing with plants. And also, you know, you could look at my social media pages for ideas and inspirations. And yeah, I'm working on creating Farm Words Academy, which is a combination of, you know, magical farming and growing to make it fun and inspiring. So so there's that. And yeah, I think that, you know, the ways in which you can choose to support through our pages or future projects that come up. You know, there are many opportunities that will be there, and it's much appreciated. Thank you for allowing us to share and contribute to the awesome work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for having Cooking for Freedom today at the webinar. Well, for me, I'll say let us continue to connect, collaborate, share ideas, and fight for food injustice. And Cooking for Freedom has been around since 2017 and is still around because of the support we receive from you with ideas, with funds. So please do also continue to support us, and we hope to be the same support to you too. So we have a Facebook page which you can follow, and the community, to engage with community, continue engaging. You have been engaging, continue to engage with communities who came in Ireland as refugees and those in the asylum process. We want to be part of the community. On your community cultural initiative, your community gardens, let us be part of it. Invite us. We are inviting you to come into our space and have a look at our space, advocate to see change. Yeah, we are all one, and food unites us because it's a basic human right that we all need to have and must have, and together we can fight all the injustice and the systems, you know, that are currently not giving us the access and ownership that is required. So I just want to say thank you so much from everyone from Cooking for Freedom.
Oh, thank you, both of you. It was so interesting, and as well, Maria, I don't know if you want to say anything else, or should we just leave it there?
Yeah, just pushing the audience to please donate to the speakers. And yeah, I'm blown away and I'm inspired and I learned a lot. So thank you very much to everyone.
And thank you, Laura. Sorry, your video's off, so I forgot to mention you. But thanks, Laura, for doing the tech support as well. Yeah, that was really great. So we might leave it there, and we will see people for our final webinar next week on Thursday.